Well, that was poor timing on my part. Nothing like 2, scratch that, 3 creators randomly coming to the same video idea individually, and yet, well, I would say releasing at the same time, but this is probably going up at the end of the month. Again, my thought process for choosing topics for videos cycles between 3 distinct areas. Game I want to cover in excruciating detail because I wholeheartedly enjoy or dislike it, a retrospective where I cover a series or set of games that are connected, tangentially or not, because of a variety of factors like hate, never played, correlation, relation, or a random title either from my childhood I remember playing and want to go back to, or one I've never played and been meaning to do so. Ultimate Spider-Man falls into the last of the 3 as alongside Spider-Man 2 on GameCube and the Neversoft / Vicarious Vision Spider-Man duology on PlayStation 1. USM was my most played Spider-Man game from my childhood and the one that I actually beat back then. Never got past Doc Ock 2 from Spider-Man 2, and I can't remember the stopping point for the other 2. I think it was Lizard and Inner Electro, while Spider-Man on PlayStation 1 is a blur. Probably the sewers. Also Lizard related. And to round this out, I did beat Spider-Man 3 on PlayStation 2, so I'm about 0.3 with Dr. Connors. Anywho, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share the video around. Maybe hit up my Patreon to become a ticket holder to get your name in the credits, additional videos like thumbnail time lapses and the Showtime Reels, the scripts in their entirety, and more. Or don't, I ain't your Uncle Ben. Take your pick if I get killed by Flint Marko or Dennis Carradine. Oh yeah, this was done by Treyarch. Right during the height of Spider-Mania, seeing as the Raimi trilogy was the talk of the town, leading to a bunch of licensed games of high quality by the Call of Duty developer. To the point that some of you have probably seen the Pounder McNasty's How Were 5 AAA Spider-Man games built under 8 years video, which I have linked below, even if only one section of it pertains to today. Like, it can't be understated that the importance of Spider-Man 2, the movie game, resonates with Ultimate Spider-Man. They both started development around the same time, so circa 2002 to 2003. But I won't be talking about the movie game 2, as it is its own beast. Just have you know that a lot of the groundwork on the development front for this game, gameplay style, level structure, mechanics, was laid out by Spider-Man 2. Heads up again, as I'll be making use of 2 resources that aren't of written format, expect paraphrasing, that being the behind-the-scenes vignette for Ultimate Spider-Man and the 4-part G4 interview conducted for the game. Those are also linked below. Got that? Good. Comics. Yeah, those funny little things, as where the previous Spider-Man games developed by Treyarch and published by Activision were based on the Sony movies due to licensing deals, the team that had been working on what would turn into a quintet of games with the Amazing One wanted to go back to the roots. At around the turn of the millennium, comics as an industry were in a weird spot. While adaptations of the source material could prove and were proven to be successful if under the right hands, sing the praises of Batman 89, Returns, Blade, the books themselves weren't given much love. Marvel as a company was in turmoil, having seen Chapter 11, a bunch of layoffs, and changing management. Why was that? Well, as Slate writer Josephine Riesman says, there was a wide array of causes for Marvel's woes. the collapse of a comics as collectible items bubble, and multiple defections by top artists, for example. But one ailment was obvious to any brand new reader who bought a Marvel comic for the first time. There was so much backstory that the stories were almost incomprehensible. If you remember from my Darkness video, Image Comics was born in the early 90s as a response to how bad the treatment was to artists in the industry. And if I want to correlate something else, that's always been the problem with comics now, hasn't it? Where the fuck do I start? There's a reason why most of the comics I've read are either standalone or in their own bubble. Looking at you, Punisher Max and Alan Moore. Let's even keep to the topic of today. You know how many issues of Spider-Man you have to read to finish the Maximum Carnage storyline? 14. You know how many of those are different runs of Spider-Man? 5. Maximum Carnage spans these runs: Unlimited, Web of, Amazing, Spider-Man, and Spectacular. And you have to read them alternatingly, so you start with Spider-Man Unlimited issue 1, then Web of Spider-Man 101, then Amazing Spider-Man 378, and now you know why omnibuses are so prevalent. Oh yeah, and if you don't know who the characters of Cloak and Dagger, Firestarter, and Morbius, among others are, you ain't gonna get an explanation. Fuck you. So, what's the solution here? Well, start a new continuity where all the Marvel heroes were back in their prime, take them to square one, and go from there. And since this is a gamble, still run the mainline series in case this experiment fails. Of course, that is a simplistic breakdown of how Bill Jamis, then Vice President of Marvel, and Joe Quesada, Editor-in-Chief at the time for Marvel, came up with the Ultimate line. Back to Slate, Jamis opted for an extremely simple premise. There would be a new Spider-Man series and a new X-Men series in which all the characters were still young. That's it. No explanations about why, no complicated in-continuity sci-fi justifications about interdimensional travel, nothing. And Jamis had a firewall against failure too. Marvel would continue to publish the existing Spider-Man and X-Men series, the ones with hundreds of issues of complicated old continuity. They, the so-called mainstream Marvel series, would be unaffected. The rebooted tales would simply exist in another fictional universe. And if those stories didn't sell, Marvel could just cancel them without affecting existing mainstream continuity. This is where Brian Michael Bendis steps in, as Quesada had chosen him, after reading Bendis' spec script, to be the one to polish up a hero for the ultimate continuity: Spider-Man. If you think I'm going to go in depth with Brian Michael Bendis, I'm not. His importance to us is that he was the writer of Ultimate Spider-Man, and he would join Treyarch for the Ultimate Spider-Man game because Marvel basically let the comic team help with production. In fact, this is where things kind of get funny for the Ultimate line, and why I've linked a Reddit post below discussing the success of USM the comic. What actually helped Marvel get out of the rut was saturating the market, which would help hype up Mark Millar's Ultimate X-Men. Here's Slate. Jamis was overjoyed with the issue, but retailers were skeptical. I publicly said, if Ultimate Spider-Man made it to 100 issues, I would eat a bug, San Francisco-based comic shop owner Brian Hibbs told me. The first issue debuted at number 15 on the monthly sales charts for September of 2000, selling a modest 54,000 copies. But Jamis had a wild, risky scheme. He distributed millions of copies at chain stores like Payless Shoes and Walmart. Major media outlets picked up on Jamis' publicity push, leading to glowing reviews. That all added up to overwhelmingly positive and widespread word-of-mouth praise. Sales steadily rose. That probably explains why Marvel let Activision have the Ultimate Spider-Man license when the publisher asked. kind of reminds me of the 4 pillars plan that Todd McFarlane had for Image and Spawn. For brevity, it was saturate the biggest industries with your iconography. Comics, games, movies, and toys. By any means necessary. You can tell Jameis had a degree in economics as opposed to the arts, which is where he would get into trouble, leading to his departure from Marvel and transformation into a controversial figure in the comics industry. If you're wondering, Ultimate X-Men sold 117,000 issues for its debut, and was the darling of the Ultimate lineup until near the end of the continuity, where Spider-Man and the Ultimates become bigger features. Something UXM ends quite poorly? I don't know. Most I know is Miles and the Maker. And not even from their own series. So like I said, the reasoning for why this game probably came to be is because of Jameis's need for complete global saturation when it came to getting the Ultimate line off on the right foot, though Treyarch did benefit, like I said. When proper development started in June of 2003, Treyarch grabbed a lot of the brainchildren behind USM the comic for the game, Bendis having the writing credit and Mark Bagley handling the art, and the development team itself would be bolstered up to around 100 members. This is where the game's continuity to the comic would be brought forth, as a number of events in the books would be canon to the game's storyline. Particularly everything up from issue 1 to around 76. 82 was the latest issue of the comic to come out when the game was released on September 22nd, 2005 on basically every console, with the Venom arc centered around issues 33 through 39 serving as the backbone for USM the game's plot. It was a concerted effort by the team to make Venom playable, leading to John Zamkoff, a senior producer on the Ultimate Spider-Man game, to say that the team built 2 games. One that was Spider-Man, one that was Venom. Another united front was trying to match the look of the comics, birthing forth 3D comic inking technology. The reason why Ultimate Spider-Man the game looks the way that it does is because of this proprietary architecture and Treyarch wanting to mimic the structure of a comic book right down to the letter. This was probably the most time-consuming effort that Treyarch had to go through for Ultimate Spider-Man, as all the shaders had to be built from the ground up, and attention to detail had to be perfect. It explains why Bendis and Bagley were won over by Treyarch. In total, Ultimate Spider-Man the game took about 2 years for development, coming out, as I said earlier, on September 22nd, 2005 for North America, October everywhere else. There is a limited edition of the game that comes with some of the BTS material that I've referenced and paraphrased, which is the version I use, because USM has been landlocked like the rest of its Treyarch brothers. Dolphin and PCSX2 are your friends, I use the latter, though I will mention that I had slowdown issues. Not enough to completely hamper gameplay, but it was noticeable. Obviously, I won't factor that into my critique. Our tale begins in that usual Spider-Man way, except sped through all the stuff everyone basically knows about the character. Great power, great responsibility, yada yada yada. Since becoming Spider-Man, Peter Parker, Earth 1610 to be exact, that's the Ultimate Universe for Marvel, has reunited with his childhood friend Eddie Brock, who shows him the culmination of their father's work. The Black Suit, aka the Black Symbiote, aka Venom. Too bad Parker and Brock Sr. signed it away to Boulevard Trask, who'll probably use it too. I don't know, kill mutants? I'm more familiar with the 616 version, the canon universe for Marvel of the character. Sneakily, Peter steals the suit back and tries it for a test run, experiencing the usual Venom shenanigans, leading into Eddie taking the suit and wishing to kill Pete for his perceived betrayal. Smash cut to a rainy night where Peter and Eddie face off, ultimately concluding inconclusively. How shocking.
Lie on the ground with your hands over your head. Both of you on the ground now. What the hell is that?
A few months removed from this event, and after having to pick up his suit from MJ as she had to repair it, Peter goes through a regular day in the life of Spider-Man. Swinging through Queens, stopping Shocker, preventing some crimes, and racing Johnny Storm, aka the Human Torch. Some friendships are like gravity, even across dimensions. Having to keep up some semblance of a regular life, Peter heads over to his workplace, the Daily Bugle, for a shift, bringing us to nighttime and Eddie. Flashing back to that fateful encounter, we see that Adrian Toombs, Vulture in the 616 continuity, bore witness to the scuffle, alerting Trask to the missing suit. Somehow, Eddie was able to flee from the cops post-Electric Boogaloo. Thankfully, it wasn't the third rail, as we see in the present Venom going through his nightly routine of having to feed on civvies. No, not that one. Winding up in a barroom brawl with Wolverine.
If you could call this alive.
Holy! Nice mess. You don't say.
The next day, after having run a few errands as Spider-Man, time for class for Peter. Or it would be if the Rhino wasn't rampaging around. For what reason, I don't know, but the suit was made by Trask, so that can't be good? Blame Pete's high school brain as he doesn't recall that name. Or maybe the onset headaches are blanking his mind, caused by unknowingly being around Eddie. Concerning him, he's now being chased by Silver Sable and her Wild Pack. Undoubtedly, they were hired by Trask. This night-long chase goes on until morning, where Eddie and Peter square off once again, this time at a museum. Before a victor can be decided, the Wild Pack catch up and detain Venom, presumably bringing him to Trask.
Tango down. Prep for evac.
Hey! What is this? What's going on?
Nothing that concerns you.
My bruised ribs beg to differ. Yeah. Okay then. Sure. I'll just stay here and, oh, nuts.
With some downtime after the fracas, Peter runs a little experiment to try and figure out why his brain wants to climb out of his skull when around the suit, finding out his blood has trace amounts of venom in it. The Daily Bugle calls, so that revelation will have to be explored later. On the dot, yep, Eddie was taken to Trask, who presents the boy a deal. Tests the suit for a chance at freedom. A poisoned chalice that Brock kinda surmises, but he'll play along for now.
Home, Edward. This is where what you've become was born.
I know you.
Bolivar Trask, this is my associate, Dr. Adrian Toombs.
I did my graduate work with your father's lab. I was there when he and Dr. Parker...
Let's get down to business, shall we, Edward? The Venom suit is worth billions of dollars in government contracts. We wish to test
This suit, it's too much for anyone to control.
It will kill you if we leave you in there alone.
When the suit consumes you, we will find someone else to test it. One way or the other, Edward, we will get what we are after.
His first trial is against Electro, though an intervening Spider-Man and S.H.I.E.L.D. give Eddie the chance to escape into the night. And while Nick Fury tries to explain the situation to Peter, the web woven isn't pretty. Sable and the Wild Pack are a part of S.H.I.E.L.D., with Electro having been detained by the organization. So, what gives? Are they in bed with Trask? A nightly swing to clear his mind, Peter runs aground of the Beetle, whose stated goals are unknown. Freeing Green Goblin, taking the vial containing Sandman. None of this is good. But Peter doesn't get any answers as the Beetle manages to escape him. The only lead to go off of is the Latvian embassy. Fantastic. So, Doom is involved somehow. Someone's gonna be meeting their maker, and it ain't gonna be me. Scratch what I said from the record. Eddie apparently didn't escape from Trask, as when we see him next, Tomb's conducting an interview with him. The Venom suit is incomplete without the residue that's latched onto Peter, making him the target of Trask. That won't fly for Eddie, who uses the next trial, this time against Sable, to escape again. Working late at the Bugle, Peter follows the Latvian lead, with the help of MJ, to figure out what the Beetle is doing, earning the ire of Nick Fury, who purposely pushes Pete into taking down Green Goblin for S.H.I.E.L.D.
The Latvians have some armored goon busting into labs and stealing things. Maybe I should go check it out.
Or we could go to the movies.
Hold on, I have another call.
Rooftop, now.
This is my life.
Kid,
This is a real intrusion.
I need you to back off the Latvian thing.
Why?
Sorry, kid. 18 and older.
What does that mean?
It means I need you to back off.
Yeah, okay, fine. 18 and over? How does he think he is? Great.
Guess that saves Sharon Carter the heavy lifting. A few nights later, Venom coincidentally involves himself in the Latvian connection by taking down Beetle. That's what he gets for wanting a sample of the suit. In the morning, Sable makes her move on Peter, leading to a highway brawl turned civilian rescue. Before she can complete her contract, though, Silver Sable gets bodied by Venom, leading to a chase that winds up with both Eddie and Peter captured by Trask's men. Left to his own devices, Adrian agitates the suit's cells left on Peter, incidentally birthing Carnage, who runs amok until meeting Venom.
What's going on? Where am I?
Tell me, Mr. Parker, did you ever wear the Venom suit yourself?
What is this?
Did you wear the suit?
Once. Only for a few hours.
It appears that the suit bonded itself to you. It's amazing you've survived any encounter with Eddie Brock at all. The microscopic suit particles in you want to join with the suit Brock wears. Fascinating. Let's see if we can help them. In case this kills you, I want you to know I think your father was a genius, 10 years ahead of the curve. Status?
Red versus Purple, Venom wins, absorbing the missing cells from Peter, completing the symbiote and granting Eddie full control. First task, murder Trask. Despite all the woe he's caused for Peter, Boulevard does hold all the information regarding what happened to Parker and Brock Sr., and, well, it isn't in the Spider-Man code to let a villain kill another villain. That ain't justice, so giving the boot of it to Venom, the day is saved? I mean, turns out Brock Sr. may have been the one who went behind Parker Sr.'s back for the Trask contract. Obviously, Bolivar was responsible for Peter's immediate family being dead, and S.H.I.E.L.D. handles Trask's arrest, but with how rich he is, prison might as well be a private suite. Our story does end, however, with Eddie getting his revenge. Spider-Man and Venom bound to have another rumble like they always do. Hey, I wonder what that Latvarian thing was about, too. Yeah, that's about it when it comes to the story. It's weird because, technically speaking, there is a canon that Ultimate Spider-Man follows. I've mentioned it in history, but for a recap, the game's story takes place sometime after comic issues 33 through 39 of the Ultimate Venom arc, and would logically sit around 71 and 72. Superstars and Hobgoblin. If that wasn't for the War of the Symbiotes arc, which is an adaptation of the game's story, taking place between issues 123 through 128. However, there is an assumption from Ultimate Spider-Man the game's part that you don't know anything about the universe this takes place in, which is fair. Despite acting as the gateway into the Ultimate lineup and universe for Marvel, Ultimate Spider-Man had a hell of a time actually getting to the place where it sits now. I mean, Miles was made way more popular by Spider-Verse in the newer games, but I digress. It was more or less the Ultimate X-Men that catapulted the line and got people to read. There's a disparity between comic fans and game fans, both in size and scope, so what would have been the better choice? Having this story be simple, introductory, and wrapped up in a somewhat neat bow with characters that are familiar to a degree and popular to the Spider-Man image was a no-brainer. People love Venom. Rhino is already a factor in Spider-Man 2, the movie game. This is a second, newer incarnation of Green Goblin behind Willem Dafoe's, thus leaving enough room to plant a few seeds here and there of slight unfamiliarity. Eyes were already on the brand due to Raimi's Spider-Man, ushering a renaissance of sorts for the webhead for guys like me. People who've never really picked up a comic book or know the ins and outs of arcs, storylines, what have you, but wouldn't mind having a place to start so they can begin collecting omnibuses, issues, and books. A little taste test to see if they like it before plunging right in. And in that regard, Ultimate Spider-Man the game succeeds. This is where the crowd-pleasing nature of the plot works in tandem with those seeds I mentioned earlier. In between all the usual Spider-Man stuff and his clash with Venom, a tale as old as time, and always one well worth falling back on, we get references to Daredevil, Latveria, and Sandman that might pique a keen-eared listener's interest. I wonder what happened to Sandman, seeing as he's in a vial. Well, an issue before the game actually explains that. It's a hook to catch a new reader into the net of comics. It's why there isn't much of an analysis to speak of, as what can I pick at? The center of the story is tied to Pete and Eddie's relationship and how their dads made the black suit. The only differing factor between the regular SM and V relationship is that here, Peter and Ed were friends at one point in time due to their dad's close relationship. And once you know that Trask is involved, you can easily theorize that he did some cheeky wheeling and dealing so he could have the black suit for his own ill-gotten gains. I feel like even typing that out was a waste of time because the story ultimately feels like one vignette to the next. Eddie squares off with Wolverine. Why? Why not? The Beetle's existence is a giant monkey wrench that goes nowhere, besides having another fight for Venom and to lead into the Green Goblin interlude for Spider-Man. Why was Rhino rampaging around except to give Peter a clue pointing him towards Trask that he doesn't follow? You could probably truncate all the times Venom goes up against Sable and her Wild Pack. Hello, Johnny Storm! doing anything else besides racing. But when you look at this story with the purpose of read Ultimate Spider-Man, a lot of this inconsequentialness makes sense. And at the end of the day, I don't mark this story against the game. It's neat seeing both headliners and less common characters interact with each other. The pace is breakneck, so there's never a dull moment, and the writing is witty and snappy when the time calls. Like I said, crowd pleaser. What will grab your attention first is absolutely the graphics. Cell shading wasn't a regular visual style in video game graphics around this point in time in the industry. I typically point to that grease trap Borderlands for making it more popular, so thanks? So having a game with such a vibrant art direction definitely made it stand out in a sea of games that were the cream of the crop in this era. Obligatory Silent Hill PlayStation 2 trilogy and SMT Nocturne reference goes here. Also, damn it, Pounder, for your video coming out before mine, as now it seems like I'm aping you with the Borderlands comparison, when I'm not. Two separate people, unbeknownst to each other, came to the same conclusion. The joys of when everyone decides to cover the same topic at around the same time. What is this, book report day for the Hunger Games? Oops, all cornucopias. Anywho, for Ultimate Spider-Man, you can very clearly tell that wanting to transport what was on the page to the TV screen was the team's biggest goal in mind, and I think their usage of cell shading and colors nails that right on the head. What did Dan Smith say in Killer 7? Straight out of a comic book.
Target secured.
Peter Parker?
What? What happened? Oh, my head. Ow! Who are you?
There is enough tranquilizer in your system to take down a really large horse. Don't fight it. I know who you are, Peter Parker. I can get at you and anyone else you know. Mary Jane Watson, May Parker.
Leave my family alone.
Get in the damn car.
This is a bad gig, man. I don't get it. Oh, it's worth tangling with this thing.
A couple $100,000 in all the nook.
All right, people, on your toes. No, I want out. You ready? I'm serious. I don't.
Hey, freak's vulnerable to electricity. This'll be fun. Bring it! Come on! Easiest $100,000 I ever made.
It helps that Ultimate Spider-Man puts its best foot forward right from the get-go. My favorite time of day during the game is nighttime while raining. Instead of the darker hue of blue that regular nights do, which I'll get to later as it ties in how the game handles lighting, nighttime with rain goes with a stylized purple shade that makes it pop. Coincidentally, you fight Venom in the beginning, so it helps create a commonality connection between presentation and story elements. Spider-Man is bright, chipper, and cheerful for the most part. His sections generally take place during the day, where his costume colors help him stand apart from the grays and browns of New York's buildings. Almost like a beacon of hope, a friendly neighborhood wall crawler. When reversed, Spider-Man feels almost out of his element, his colors fading into the backdrop almost like New York is swallowing him up. Venom, meanwhile, has most of his stages take place at night. It emphasizes his more primal interpretation. He's skulking through the shadows, feeding on the unsuspecting and blending with his environment when he needs to. His outline is only highlighted by storefront lights and lampposts, where you see how gorgeous the character models are at reflecting light sources. The way the Venom model can go from its usual dark purple to taking on an orange hue when standing in light, or becoming more blue when steeped in shadow, is such an underrated part of Ultimate Spider-Man's visual flair. And it's surprising how many objects actually generate light. I've already mentioned the storefronts and lampposts, but you have skylights on some rooftops, cars all have working headlamps, and that's not even going into the neon signs that can give a different tint to the character models than the ones I've mentioned. Going by any of the hospital signs will have red become the primary color, and so forth and so on. While this version of New York does have the odd quirk or two, particularly how buildings can become untextured to save up on memory when they are far off in the draw distance, this is a pretty great interpretation, both with familiar landmarks of the city and its own unique Ultimate Universe locations like the Baxter Building, Trask Industries, Peter's School, and more. Oh, and before I move on to talking more about the city, Venom has the inverse of Peter. Eddie only has one playable level during the day, and he's having to scamper scurry like a wounded animal to get out of sight. Like Peter at night, Venom is out of his element. Another one of my favorite parts of Ultimate Spider-Man is how New York City is laid out. Mainly because this is an element of the presentation that affects gameplay. Typically, when we think about Spider-Man, we default to tall skyscrapers for him to swing around, and the main island has that in spades. Filled with offices, high-rise apartments, and God knows what else, as there are a good number of specific building types, like a number of bars, stores, and unique buildings. Spidey can easily swing around because he has places too. The web string is a physical tether that has to be able to latch onto something, so there is a somewhat minimum of moon swinging. However, in Queens, it's a whole heap of residential areas, which means you have to be quite cognizant of the actual space you are zipping through. You can't web swing off air, and you need to go real low to swing off of the cozy little houses that make up Peter's neighborhood, but you can zip. This whole dichotomy gives each area in the game its own unique look and feel, and guess what will probably be covered again once we get to the good tab. Speaking of look, and to tie back into the comic end goal, most of you probably remember the cutscenes in the game because of the way that they are framed and paced. This is what Ang Lee's Hulk wanted to be. I know it's a cliche at this point, but the cutscenes of Ultimate Spider-Man nail that comic aesthetic with the amount of pop-outs to showcase character reactions or highlight specific happenings, like in the case of dealing with Carnage in Venom 4, split-screen paneling, emphasis of automatopoeia, and so many other effects. Like, even though I don't care for the Rhino as a boss, his whole sequence, from the start of the chase to the battle, is chock full of affection for the comic format. I especially love the moment when the Rhino gets introduced, framing the hulking robot as larger than the comic paneling itself. He then proceeds to bitch smack Peter right through a dozen or so pages, to the point that the transition back into gameplay has the web head jump into the panel where the Rhino is.
Hey, you! Is that a rhinoceros horn, or you just happy to see? I am so scared I can't even finish my lame joke. Don't worry. Nothing's broken. Except my spine. A few ribs. Maybe everything else.
Oh no, he's about to fall. I guess there's no such thing as a slow day when you're a big-time superhero.
Words really don't do justice to this game's cutscenes, and they are among the most creatively structured I've ever seen in a video game. Like, a ton of titles following Ultimate Spider-Man would use the graphical style of cel shading. Again, I brought up Borderlands for a reason, but besides for a few specific moments, I particularly think of the boss introductions for the Gearbox shooter. None of them ever go to the same degree as USM. Also helping is that some of these visual highlights are unique to certain characters. Venom and Carnage, for their pop-ins during their boss fights, purple and red tendrils ripple forth and decorate the border. Green Goblin has a bunch of flame transitions. Whenever Electro drains a screen for health, the cut-in suffers from a glitch effect. All these tiny details just further stress how hard the team wanted to make the visual identity of this game stand out, and to me, they succeeded. Think about it this way. When was the last comic book game you played that actually tried to go full hard mimicking the medium? Let's just do a quick rundown. Marvel Rivals has the art style, but for the sake of gameplay, it's your usual Sixers team shooter. Teen Titans for the GameCube, a fun 4-person beat-em-up, has the same thing going. Guardians of the Galaxy, great game by the way, recommend it, is constructed from the same makeup of the other modern Marvel games, which themselves can be traced back to the Arkham series on the presentation side of things. Exaggerated realism. Add here Midnight Suns, another good game if grindy, killed Justice League, and the precursors to Arkham, Superman Returns, Catwoman, Watchmen in His Nigh, the Blade games, Ghost Rider, almost every video on Always Nerdy's channel, and I think you see my point. Again, Doofenshmirtz timing. If you want the inverted side of things, there's Aquaman Battle for Atlantis. It has comic book paneling for its cutscenes, but there's no pizzazz or anything. Bluntly, I can only think of one other game that does the whole comic in-game format that Ultimate Spider-Man does, and that's Comic Zone, which is a 2D game, so there are less limitations as opposed to 3D. What I'm saying is that Ultimate Spider-Man has graphics that have stuck with me since I first played it way back when I was yay-high to a sandmouse, because nothing else really goes for what it does in all quarters. From the stars of the show to the villains they go up against to even minor NPCs, like, I love the gangs in this game because everyone is themed. This is a fantastic looking game. Minus the deloaded environment, which I can tell you was mostly to save memory. Even in motion, the game still looks beautiful, having some of the best web-swinging animations for the Spider-Man franchise. That's usually the seal of quality when it comes to the Amazing Ones games, but you can feel the momentum captured in the way that Spidey shifts his body based on what is the closest building to him, and he also, from time to time, does tricks like flips and rolls based on where you jump on the web line. In combat, Spidey can bounce all around when throwing out his punches and kicks, his flurry of fists and feet visibly resembling his fighting style that he's known for. The webs are the cherry on top. For as dexterous as Spider-Man is, Venom matches with raw power. He casually mauls right through anything with claws and tentacles, having an animal brutality to his motion. One word, backbreaker. In the one time where the sound isn't middling, the resounding crunch that plays when Venom snaps someone in half will always get me. But that wherein lies the problems with Ultimate Spider-Man's presentation, the sound. not the voice work, both Sean Marquette's Spider-Man, Daniel Capolero's Eddie, and Arthur Burghart's Venom make a solid trio of voices to carry the game's plot, with the extended cast doing just as well. Like Andrea Baker as Mary Jane, Dave Fennoy as Nick Fury, John Billingsley as Trask, and Jennifer Hale as Sylvester Sable are just as heavily involved as the main three, and they all nail it out of the park with these renditions of the characters. Certain lines are burned into my head as a result. Jumping into the Hudson has never not been funnier. No, what always strikes me as odd with Ultimate Spider-Man is how quiet the game can be. Where you'd think music would play when you swing around in free roam, you get deathly silence a majority of the time, only broken up by the sound effects.
What the hell do you think you're doing?
Please, somebody help me!
I should go buy the Daily Bugle.
You're the bestest.
I can't believe I ate the whole thing.
He's everywhere! It's all fall down. Knock you down. Please.
Can I have an autograph? For Mickey.
Oh.
Thanks, Spider-Man.
The thwips, pedestrian noises, vibe of the city, and UI sounds are, to be fair, basic. Extend this to the throes of combat as well, as while the gangs have their own call-out noises, you'll beat them up in silence. Not stock or aggravating, the red dot of a city event blinking into existence is a bell for this dog, but not in the position to fill dead air, which is what most of free roam is, even though the music does exist, sometimes plays during free roam, and is pretty good at capturing the tone. You'll hear it mostly in the missions, where it lands a mixture of orchestral, I guess, superhero music, blended in with more kinetic or verbose tracks. Even though it does suck that Venom only has one mission theme, it's the sequel to Invader Zim's theme that we didn't know we needed. Yep, same guy, Kevin Manthe. Too bad the music in the game is implemented the way that it is. You can actually cut it off of certain actions, like going for a dip. It's the one factor holding back this game's good presentation from being great. Or maybe spectacular. Ultimate Spider-Man is an open-world action game. kind of the precursor to what we would know as the superhero genre made popular with Batman Arkham Asylum. Basically, like GTA, but with no crimes for you to commit. While there isn't a difficulty option to pick, on the whole, the experience lies somewhere in the middle of the curve, though there are notable spikes that I would warrant calling this game a bit hard. Before that, though, Ultimate Spider-Man boots up right into a 3/3 tutorial of sorts with the first 3 levels. For sake of cohesion, I'll start with Spider-Man and the whole of the game structure before moving on to Venom and wrap up. So, as I said, when you begin the game, you are dropped into a boss fight with Venom, acting as a piece of the combat tutorial. Since we're going off of PlayStation 2 controls, as I played the PlayStation 2 version, X is jump, square is punch, triangle is kick, and circle is grab. Obviously, left stick is move and right is the camera, set natively to mad world logic, left is right and vice versa nonsense. But since we have a big dumb symbiote in our face at the moment, I'll wait to go into movement as that's what the next tutorial is all about. Spider-Man's attacks are split between strikes and throws, with comboing usually being mashing square, triangle, or both alternatingly until you reach your max combo length. That's around 4 hits at the start of USM, but as the story goes along, you get up to 6 strings in the flurry. Damage-wise, they get the job done against most things, which is why if you're near a wall or bounceable surface, you can move the control stick in their direction to do additional hits separate from the main combo. What I'm saying is that enemies aren't too sturdy, but every enemy does have the propensity to block attacks, which includes Spidey's throws. Done with circle and can only be used against regular mobs, throws can do a decent amount of damage to a foe, and there are about 5 throws in the game. 1 off of hitting circle, the other 4 by gumming someone up with webbing. Getting away from the big beastie as bosses are immune to webs, holding down L2 has Spider-Man web up whoever he's locked onto. Locking on, by the way, is performed by either one of the bumpers or by pressing one of the sticks in. My hesitancy to state which one it actually is because you tend to lock onto threats automatically anyway. Back to webbing, while this prevents a thug from moving, L2 of either X, square, triangle, or by moving the control stick back, initiates a web throw that not only deals damage, but leaves the enemy covered in the sticky fluid. Kinky, but quite important because while you can wail on bosses until their health bar depletes, when they are vulnerable, as sometimes you have to do the patches maneuver until they are, or follow a specific strategy to damage them, the various gang members and baddies theoretically have infinite health when playing as Spider-Man. You can punch them down all you want, but like a Weeble Wobble, they'll rebound unless stickied when all their health is gone. The little notifier above every enemy's head tells you all this. From health state, fine, caution, danger in green, orange, red, webbable when down, and finally defeated with the skull and crossbones. Enemy types are fairly standard, shooty boys and melee boys, and there are separate gangs throughout New York that specialize in one type or another. The die-cast love their guns, while the Yancey Street Boys field a good variety of both. On the defensive side of things, whenever you see Spidey's spider sense go off, that's your warning to jump out of harm's way. That's it. Just jump. No dodge or block or anything else, really. You can do dive attacks and web spinning in the air for attack options, but jump is all you have defensively. On to the web swinging portion, is after you defeat Venom 1, you get placed into the movement tutorial. Neglected to mention earlier, Spider-Man does have a double jump which has differing properties depending on the situation. Or maybe I should just say jumping itself has varied uses based on what you're doing. Before I get to those though, web swinging is performed with R2 while zipping is L2 and R2 together. Obviously, both are useful for movement and getting around the Big Apple, but you'll use them interchangeably based on what environment you're Spider-Maning through. Web swinging requires buildings to be above the arachnid, as he can't moon swing, so in places like residential Queens, you'll zip more. Zipping at the wrong time can utterly kill your momentum, however, unlike the swing. During a swing, you can hold either square to increase your speed or triangle to climb up higher on the web, which have their own applications. Web swinging is stringent to where the web is fired, so if the web goes left, Spidey does have a tendency to go in that direction, which can aid in turning. Spider-Man's double jump is always replenished after a swing or zip, giving you additional options, and that's not even going into the wall jump where you can either reverse your direction or jump into a specific one to keep your flow going. Wall crawling is also a facet of this. Hitting circle at a wall will cause Spider-Man to start crawling. However, if you're going at a wall with some speed, you'll start to wall run, which lasts based on the amount of speed you had going into the wall. Meaning, off a jump into a wall, you can climb a building quite quickly, and tangentially related, you can web zip up walls when climbing, but you can also wall ride during a swing if an area isn't conducive to swinging or zipping. You can wall ride onto other walls by jumping off a wall-ridden wall, useful again in areas with a low ceiling or tight space, but also for turning. There's even a wall jump in this flowchart if two are close enough to each other. That is the perfect word to describe the web swinging and movement in this game. Flow. There's a reason why you can make a dedicated video to discuss the intricacies of Ultimate Spider-Man's web swinging, as outside the basics, you practically have to learn the system on your own, which leads to moments like realizing you can wall ride under the Brooklyn Bridge. As I have the rest of the game to get to, I'll leave movement with this. It is undoubtedly the best part of USM, both on execution and implementation. After our tutorials, including a race with Johnny Storm, which I'll cover when I do the other tasks, you finally get dropped into the open world of New York and have somewhat free reign to go anywhere. What you have to do are city tasks if you want to get to the next story mission, thus giving us our level structure. Do city tasks to unlock story missions so you can do more city tasks to do more story until completion. Now, what you do in these story missions can vary, like chases where you have to keep up with a character, the aforementioned boss fights, fighting loads of enemies, rescuing civilians as Spidey, and sometimes these objectives get mixed together, but the main types of city tasks you'll complete are races, combat tours, city events, and token hunting. Easiest first, token hunting simply requires you to find the various tokens spread all across the city. These are split into categories, but they are all counted the same. Races are exactly what they say on the tin, except you have to hit waypoints and do certain tricks at them, like land in the sphere, wall crawl into the sphere, things of that nature. For completion's sake, you just have to earn a medal, with enough unlocking a Johnny Storm race, which, if you beat, upgrades your swing speed. Races go from easy, medium, hard, all the way up to insane, though the harder races are only unlocked after you had one with Johnny. So you beat enough easy races, then Johnny to get medium, then Johnny to get hard, then Johnny to get insane. Combat tours are a lot easier to understand as they are enemy gauntlets with enough completed increasing Spider-Man's health. Bringing me to dying? Don't. There's no way to heal in the middle of anything you do as the webhead. Health tokens are only awarded after a wave cleared in a combat tour or as a reward for finishing a city event. Die or fail in other ways, and you either get sent back to a checkpoint during a mission, which are pretty generous, the start of a race or combat tour. Spider-Man isn't protected from fall damage after all, or you just respawn in the world map if you died during free roam. Venom has his own healing dilemma, but that's for his section. City events are the last of the trackable tally marks, and they are a random assortment of happenings, like muggings, people in danger, gang wars, etc. If you wait long enough in an area, a city event will spawn in, but move too far away and it will disappear. On to Venom. Before you unlock the post-game and can freely switch over to the purple symbiote, the only time you'll play as Venom is during the story missions. While most of the controls are shared between our headlining duo, iDottie, the functions of the face buttons and sticks, Eddie does have some moves to replace Peter's. First off, square is a close-range 3-hit claw combo, while triangle is a long-range weaker tentacle string. You can still alternate, but Venom does have less throw types. 3 in total: a casual toss when you hit nothing or circle after a grab, a face plant by hitting square or triangle, and backbreaker, which has to be comboed into after a square or triangle attack by hitting circle. Face plant and backbreaker are the go-tos, though Venom can also throw cars, which deal a hefty amount of damage to everyone caught in the explosion, including our big boy if he happens to chuck one too close to himself. While still having a zip of sorts off L and R2, Venom doesn't swing, instead having a bound off R2. The longer you hold it in, the higher the bound. It's quite incredible Hulk-like. To compensate, Eddie's crawl speed is faster. He can bound while crawling, and Venom doesn't suffer falling damage. He also doesn't have to web foes up. The symbiote kills outright. The most important button, however, is L2, feeding time. Akin to the cancer it was meant to cure, the black suit kills its wearer over time, shockingly quick if I might add. The only way Venom circumvents this is by feeding. Holding L2 while near a civilian or enemy mob, not boss, they'll claw their way out for free damage on you, Venom will drain their vital fluids for HP. This does count as an attack, as you can daisy chain feeds off enemies, but they have less juice in their packet compared to civvies, and while not every attack will knock you out of the state, some do. And the amount of targets you have to deal with as Venom, his levels are the more combat-oriented ones, means feeding as an attack can wind you up with no health gained. There is a silver lining to this. The drain will never kill Venom. It will always stop at about a fifth of his health bar. Dangerously low, but not death. And the game isn't too malicious, as it tends to provide a means of healing when playing as Venom, such as bar patrons during the Wolverine fight, security guards when facing off of Carnage, and pedestrians during any fights in the overworld. Beetle 2 does break this rule, so be mindful when fighting him. When you complete the main story, that's when you can switch over to Venom for free roam, as he has access to a few unique races to him, which you need to complete for 100%. He also has a score attack with a GTA-styled star system for those that want to go on a rampage. Sadly, Venom doesn't get any upgrades though, and after you beat the main story, all you have left to do is the checklist, making the post-game quite droll. It's a moot point, as I might as well be calling the sky blue, but damn is the web swinging fun in Ultimate Spider-Man. If you're making a game about the Amazing One, this has to be nailed on the head, otherwise, what's the point? On at least 3 separate occasions since having finished the recording session, I have spent time swinging around for the fun of it. Hell, I recorded a little bit of extra footage to showcase how great the web swinging is. If that isn't a spectacular recommendation for me, I don't know what is, and it stems from all the aspects that I've mentioned in the other parts of the video. Again, while you do start off with all of Spidey's movement options, the game only tells you about the bare minimum of web swinging and zipping. That being those 2 modes of travel, where they're useful, and of course jumping and double jumping. Everything else you have to figure out for yourself or learn through the races. While I didn't do all of them, as completion in Ultimate Spider-Man is a collectible busy work nightmare, a number of these races either will introduce you to certain elements of the moveset or teach you about the peculiarities of the moves themselves. Case in point, web zipping and its effective range. Of the 2 mainline transportation moves, web zipping grants a higher burst of speed compared to the swing, however, it is stringent to the distance between you and an object you can zip towards. Why that is because if you zip too close, you'll kill all momentum you had going into the zip and effectively be dead in the water. That sucks whether you're in a race or are dicking around in the free roam. However, while this hurts your speed, this version of the zip does have utility in that it gives you a lot of height. Great for getting up to rooftops if you misjudged your distance with a swing, or when you're trying to climb up one without having to rely upon crawling. Wall crawling sucks in general because it's so slow. That's why you learn about wall running almost immediately, as it speeds up the process while also allowing for a few techniques to be utilized, like the wall jump. Picture this. Your starting position is in an enclosed alleyway, 2 high walls on both sides that make zipping and swinging impossible to do. While you can just wall crawl or, God forbid, walk out of the alley, that isn't particularly amazing of you. You can zip up walls while crawling on them, which is pretty fast, but lacks pizzazz. It is also the nuclear option that you have to fully commit to. Okay, so how do we get out of this alley without looking like bombastic Bagman and without being boring? Well, when you come at a wall with any amount of speed, you'll indeed wall run like I mentioned before. Great for getting up a building in a short burst, however, it isn't indefinite. Based on the speed you carried into the wall run, that's how long Peter will go. So you won't clear the building before beginning a crawl. We don't want that. We want to go fast like we're Ricky Bobby stealing his mom's car at the age of 5. What you can do is jump while in the middle of a wall run. Peter will kick off the wall he is currently on. This has a few uses. The one important to us in this scenario I've created is that if you wall jump off a wall into another, you can continue to wall run because you gained speed when you jumped. Now we can get out of this alley and get back to exploring New York, but let's say that the walls were just a tad bit closer to each other. While you can still do the above, nothing is stopping you from just casually wall jumping up to the roof of the alleyway. This can be great for little alcoves on buildings that have them, as again, crawling sucks due to it being slow and lame. Going back to wall jumping, it has an underrated usage for when you accidentally make a wrong turn or go someplace that you didn't want to. It's effectively a reverse, allowing you to keep up some speed after a botch. Same with the web zip, as you aren't hard-coded into one direction when you move. Traversal is all about fluidity and understanding the capabilities of Spider-Man's moves in comparison to where he is in the world. I've already gone over this in presentation, but it's such a massive aspect of how you get through the city that your core fundamentals can change on the fly based on what is in an area of New York. With all the skyscrapers in the world, the main part of the Big Apple lets web swinging take the center stage, and with it, you can understand how to properly corner around streets and take advantage of the web climb during the swing. Something that you'll probably notice when going around town is that Spider-Man does 2 things when swinging. 1, he stays on the line for as long as you hold down L2, and 2, based on where he shoots his web, you'll get pulled into that direction. These 2 little attributes help when it comes to cornering a building onto a new street, as you never have to start a new line to turn. It is far faster to do this than to jump off a web line to turn than start a new line to continue swinging. Just saying that was a mouthful when you can absolutely condense your actions. Likewise, with larger buildings, you can use the web swing and climb in conjunction to reach the top of a building without touching it if you want to be all impractical and show-offy. There's not a lot of reasons to do this except in the races, but boy is it fun to never once touch a skyscraper and still manage to scale it. Going back to the turning, wall riding gets its time to shine here. Going back even further before I went in on turning, you can probably already theorize that you can wall ride just from simply knowing that you can wall run. This goes back into the whole experimentation angle that Ultimate Spider-Man wants to play with. It led to me realizing, as I said in the gameplay section, that you can wall run on almost any surface, including upside down like on the Brooklyn Bridge. Is there a point to this in the bridge scenario? Not really. You are actually faster web swinging under bridges rather than wall running under them, as you don't have to deal with the connective arches and the delayed jump off that Peter has when unsticking himself, but it's cool and is a very Spider-Man thing to do. But wall riding, I feel like the terms are interchangeable at this point, though I'm using running with moving vertical, riding horizontal, allows you to squeeze through areas where swinging and zipping aren't feasible. Taking us back to the alleyway scenario, so you want to take a shortcut through it to reach a destination quicker. Okay, instead of bumbling around hoping to avoid clattering into walls, you can come at them from the side and hit circle to initiate a wall ride, which has the same properties of a wall run. That way you keep momentum through the short passage, come out on the opposite side, still at the same height, and with speed ready to begin zipping and swinging again. Taking this to the open streets, wall riding has its usage with turning in the same way that drifting works in reality. You wall ride a right wall to go left and vice versa, as your jump will push you in the opposite direction. You can also transition from a wall ride to crawl if you corner the building, though again, I view that as a last resort, as every other method is not only quicker, but to me more fun. Especially since while in New York you can get away with lazily swinging around, Queens' lower ceiling wants you to pick up on the intricacies of the movement system. There's not a lot of taller buildings to rely upon in Peter's neck of the woods, which is where your zipping and jumping gets to shine. Understanding the depths of the jump and its functions in each scenario in correlation with walls can allow you to breeze right through Queens in the span of a few seconds. I think what I really like about Ultimate Spider-Man's web swinging and zipping, and now I feel like I've been saying that far too many times, but there aren't any better words applicable, is that while it has a high skill ceiling, the skill floor is welcoming. All the stuff I've talked about, and probably the stuff I haven't mentioned because there's bound to be tech I don't know about, is intermediate to higher skill, but Ultimate Spider-Man doesn't punish you for only understanding the basics. The optional races in Johnny Storm will be harder, and at some point you will need to learn if you want to max out the swing speed, which is a fantastic way to implement that upgrade, as if you want to go faster, you need to prove to the game that you can swing like Spidey, but that doesn't get you off from the main game and is there for those that want the challenge. None of the races require you to get a medal higher than bronze for story progress, so if it isn't your thing, that is A-okay. It hits that sweet spot that Spider-Man 2 the movie game did, and is why I don't care as much for the swinging in Marvel's Spider-Man. It feels less skill-based and more automated if you excuse the impromptu comparison. Swinging in Ultimate Spider-Man just feels right, from the fluidity of changing your movement on the fly to the way that the city is laid out, requiring you to understand how your jump, swing, and zip function, to the actual properties of Spider-Man's moves and how they can help or hinder him in a given scenario. It's so whole, complete, as close to a perfectly laid out system as it can get for a video game. It's why I like that a number of missions have the chase objective, as you can effortlessly keep up with your target by putting in the work. You can avoid Beetle's shield walls without bumping into them or dodge Green Goblin's fire blast without getting scorched and keeping up your speed. I wish more of Ultimate Spider-Man's objectives were twists on this, like maybe an escape level where you had to get away from a chaser. Web swinging is the glue that holds this whole entire title together. Man, enemies sure do block a lot, or at the very least, seem impervious to damage with no clear indicator. Of the problems that exist in the game, this is the most pressing because it stares at you right from square one. Yep, from Venom 1 onward, be prepared for how unreasonably weird it is to hurt enemies. Venom 1, aka the literal first fight in the game. The safest approach on an enemy is generally after they attack because they are hard-coded to not be able to block for a few seconds. That is the one constant. Anytime else, might as well be shooting dice or hoping to not be screwed on your opening hand in Commander. One land and a soul ring never felt more painful. But if that wasn't bad enough, the layers to this blocking problem are split between regular mobs and supervillains. Mooks, it's fairly explanatory. Multiple enemies means you're more likely to be hit out of your combo if it is successful, or punished by attacking a blocking threat. Because thugs come in different flavors, you have to pick and choose who to deal with first, especially the underbosses for the gangs that typically have high damaging ranged attacks, so not being able to reliably take them out even with throws is a sore spot for the combat tours. While everything you throw out at one underboss is getting stuffed, another is readying a pummeling for you, as they typically come in pairs, aided by the middle tier enemy for the gang that can also shred your health. For bosses, it makes all the fights glacially paced because you essentially have to let whoever you're fighting do their routine before you are granted the opportunity to damage them. Let's run this down boss by boss, as there aren't a lot of them, and almost each one is awful in their own way. You fight Venom a total of 4 times throughout USM, but besides some new moves and additional gimmicks added to each new encounter, which might as well be monkey wrenches thrown right at your face, the stipulations, not the attacks, the fight is practically the same. Venom will do his best to get in your face, announce his combo string with a roar, perform it in the shape of claw swipes if close, tentacle swings if far, with a few grabs somewhere in the middle of these, then stand around like a thundering dumbass waiting for a rebuttal only to repeat the cycle. If he hasn't roared, you are technically free to hurt Venom, but it's a gamble because he can decide to ignore damage, or you might accidentally cut off his combo announcement, doubly so after Venom 1. That fight is the least egregious because you're at least not suffering from headaches by being too close to the black suit. You just have to deal with the inconsistent damage window. From Venom 2 onward until 4, the symbiote exudes an aura symbolized by a slight vibration through your controller that gets more prominent by staying in his vicinity. Be around him for too long, Spider-Man is stunned until he recovers, though it is typically long enough for Eddie to beat Pete's head in. On average, 5 seconds is considered the threshold, so you have to play even more of a hit and runner, made worse by the inclusion of the mash grab Venom gains and keeps throughout the next fight. Off any move in his repertoire can Venom attempt an assimilation, dealing a sizable chunk to your health, because you have to alternate triggers to escape, which is inconsistent. Piling more onto the plate is the hostage situations Venom 3 and 4 put you in. Lose Venom's attention and he'll start killing Sable or Trask respectively. Honestly, I don't know which is worse. With Venom 3, he doesn't actually have to mount Sable to hurt her. 19 inches of Venom is preferable to a car to the face, as Eddie is a low and slow lover, unlike the white sedan he just threw. He throws cars randomly, and he doesn't have to be aiming at Sable to hurt her, so 2 or 3 collaterals is game over. Meanwhile, Venom 4 is a double whammy of hostage rescue with Trask's helicopter, mixed in with a shrinking arena. While Trask is sturdier than Sable, Eddie is far more likely to divert his attention to him after ragdolling you with a combo, so you can't afford to get hit. Doubly so since you can get launched off the tower, giving Venom a good amount of one-on-one time with Trask. Triply because the man is an idiot and accidentally lit the heliport on fire that'll deal heavy continuous damage if you touch it, and grows at certain boss thresholds to the point that you have to face Venom in an area the size of a postage stamp. Hooray for not having headaches anymore? That makes dodging a nightmare, but so does the helicopter, as you can ram your head into the blade, sending you flying and shaving a portion of your health bar off. Having no dedicated defensive option besides jump leads to shenanigans like this, where I have to get out of Venom's way lest he bitch slap me, but uh-oh, I figured fighting a spinning rotary blade is less viable. While I haven't covered it for LTA, Spider-Man 2 the movie game does have a dodge button, so it's baffling this title doesn't. Skipping Shocker, as he isn't a boss and hilariously shows up from time to time as an elite enemy like Boomerang, Wolverine, Electro, and Carnage all share the same gimmick of regenerating health, which factors into their annoyance scale. Two of them I can cover in a shared vacuum, as boy howdy do Wolverine and Carnage punish player damage reaction and the lack of effective defense. Both are among the speediest bosses in Ultimate Spider-Man, beaten out only by Beetle and compatriot Electro, rarely giving out a tell for an attack until they start hitting you, and by then it's too late if you're pressing anything other than jump. The amount of hits done in the game off every damage situation ensures that if Carnage or Wolverine hit you once and you don't immediately jump away, you'll eat their full combo, generally sending you flying, allowing their AI to nip off and heal for a bit. That wouldn't be as detrimental if you were playing as Spider-Man, as he gets health upgrades from the combat tours if you grind them out, a boulder up a mountain in its own right, but since both are Venom bosses, you have two factors against you. Venom doesn't get any upgrades, so his piddly meter is all you have for resources, but you also have to contend with the constant health drain that the black suit inflicts on Eddie. That means about one or two stray combos from Carnage or Wolverine will force you to hunt for victims in the arena, which there thankfully are, allowing the Red Suit or X-Man to either pester you away from your prey or match the damage you've done to them previously by regenerating. Of the two, Carnage is the worst, simply because he can tendril smack Venom from a mile away while Wolverine has to get in close, lacking a lunge. And you have to deal with the two hardest trigger QTEs in the game that will just let the Crimson Symbiote get his health back for Phase 2 and 3. Wolverine fights you in an enclosed bar and dojo for comparison, so it's not like he'll get away from you. Moving on to Electro, his regeneration is tied to his second phase where he completely powers up. You can't kill him, or it seems like you can't. It might be perfect timing to knock him out of it, because as long as a video screen exists in Times Square, or something that runs with that sweet, sweet electricity, Electro will scamper off to fully replenish his HP. Basically, you have to spend time between busying Electro so he doesn't kill Spider-Man, yeah, it's a hostage boss, while also going around the sizable landmark destroying every environmental object. The best way to do that is by utilizing Venom's high jump because the tracking on the vehicle throw is inconsistent. Sometimes you'll lock onto an electric sign, other times Electro, and sometimes nothing at all. It is unreliable, which sucks because to even damage Electro in Phase 2, you have to kick him out of the Blue Man group by stunning him with a car. An attack option his AI can decide to dodge for the hell of it, so you might have to throw about 2 or 3 cars before he eats one. Better hope Peter isn't in the crossfire. Thankfully, Electro has to divert his attention to Spider-Man to hurt him, so at least this isn't Venom 3 unless you accidentally chuck cars at Pete. Continuing on to Beetle, as he and the Lightning Rod are adjacent, he never really stops moving, so much of the battles with him are also against the camera. I know Pete got his start as a wrestler, but 2-on-1 handicap matches are still unfair. This affects Spider-Man more than Venom, as at least you fight the Beetle in a warehouse as the symbiote, where you generally deal with the inconsistent damage window and inability to actually hit the flying pest more. Venom has garbage aerial attacks that don't home in, unlike how you fight the knockoff Iron Man in a construction site as the Brown Widow. The Beetle will dip between both floors of the tower, screwing with the lock-on as you try to find him, and while Peter does have his dive attacks, Beetle is still stringent to the above vulnerability window, and he'll almost certainly get pot shots with his ranged armaments. These can ragdoll Pete, and since this fight is considered a chase, getting not too far away from the Beetle is a game over, and with the tower being the only building tall enough to web swing from, it can be surprisingly difficult to recover when you're thrown off. Silver Sable as a boss is barely worth mentioning when playing as Venom. She suffers the usual problems the other bosses do when going to attack her, and of course this isn't helped by the HP drain, but as Spider-Man, the fight becomes a slog. For whatever reason, you lose any health upgrades you had going into the fight, only gaining them back after you beat her and the subsequent rescue sequence going into the Venom chase. Why? Peter and Spider-Man aren't two separate entities, so why are they coded as such for this fight? Oh yeah, Sable's tranks do damage over time, so that smaller health bar is massively detrimental, and you have to let her shoot at you. She can only be damaged after firing a shot. Silver is hard-coded to ignore all damage until after she fires her gun, as you can see in my clip. Perhaps the worst boss of them all is Rhino. Not only is he a giant punch sponge, so it seems we're flats in this scenario, the amount of waiting around you have to do is equal to the amount of punching you must do to defeat the Big Mac. Half the fight is literally dodging Rhino, waiting for the sparks on his suit to shut off so you can damage him for a little bit so the process can embrace the cycle of Samsara. It's completely unengaging because you aren't doing anything cool or having to be proactive in the fight. You wait for Rhino to be vulnerable, hit him a couple of times, he becomes invulnerable, rinse, repeat. The fight itself took about 4 minutes in my recording, but it felt longer because you aren't having to put in the effort to switch off the sparks. All you need to do is avoid the admittedly wonky hitboxes on the Rhino's attacks, then latch onto his back and spam attack until he shakes you off. Not to bring up, again, a game I haven't played for the channel, but Spider-Man 2 did the fight better as you actually had to time your dodges to avoid the animal's attacks, and depending on which attack he used, you could stun him easier. How is Green Goblin the only boss I like in this game? Completing this section of the video, good luck going for 100% completion, as the amount of stuff you have to do is quite high. You have to finish all the races with a medal, it doesn't matter the ranking, do all the combat tours, solve about 50 random city events, and find all the tokens. It's the last one if you're wondering. Tokens are split into a few categories: landmark, comic, and secret, and without a way to place markers on the map, it is needles in a haystack. You need to do everything to get the black suit for Spider-Man free roam, but that's all you have left after you get it. Lame. I'm of two minds when it comes to Ultimate Spider-Man. On one hand, it makes me want to replay Spider-Man 2 to see how the web swinging stacks up in this game compared to that one. USM just feels so good when it comes to patrolling New York and pulling off masterful maneuvers to get around the city faster. I don't want to say peak, as it has been the hottest minute since I played Spider-Man 2. That's why I'm not going to say USM is the best webhead simulator. On the other hand, I want to compare it, whether on my own time or the channel, probably the former, because I think this game might have the worst combat system of the modern Spider-Man titles. So from the PS1 duology to the Marvel trilogy, not counting friend or foe, combat is so limited in Ultimate Spider-Man, and every battle feels like a slap fight with a few rounds of timeout for good measure. Even if I dislike the combat in Marvel Spider-Man, webs are so OP that every fight kinda settles itself. It at least had a lot under the hood compared to here. I do think one mindset wins out in the end, however. The web swinging, man. It calls to me. I can solely recommend Ultimate Spider-Man on that basis alone because it is so tuned to perfection. Which means Dolphin, PCSX2, and a bit of the yo-ho-hoing if you want to play this game. No, seriously, was April the month of Ultimate Spider-Man? 3 videos covering the topic either partly or in full? What is this collective unconsciousness? If you are wondering, I haven't watched Always Nerdy's coverage of USM yet, and won't until this has been uploaded. I avoid videos, whether new or old, going over games I'm currently producing an LTA on so as to keep my viewpoint, I guess, unclouded, free of any outside influence. The points I've personally concluded to, positive or negative, can stand on their own. Keeps the videos and ideas fresh. Or as much as they can get when you review video games on the internet. Anywho, this show is made possible with the likes of the moviegoers within the Peanut Gallery and Inner Circle. Consider buying a ticket at patreon.com/Let's Talk About Games, no apostrophe in the Let's, for behind the scenes access to LTA scripts, thumbnails, other bonus material, your name in the credits, and early screenings of episodes, plus the live commentary Showtime Reels, where I ramble my way through games gone by. As said at the top, like, comment, subscribe, share, become a ticket holder, or don't. I ain't your Uncle Ben. And as always, this showing of Ultimate Spider-Man is over, but stay tuned for our next feature. The DS indie zombie shooter Little Red Riding Hood Zombie Barbecue.